I hope the thumbnail of this video isn't overly pretentious. I watched Ladyballers a while ago, and I didn't really like it. To give some context, this is the second film in the Daily Wire cinematic universe that I've seen, the first being the god-awful What is a Woman. You can take a look at my essay on it here.
So fucking boring!
But this new film follows that one nicely, as they're both inherently dishonest and poorly made. But where What is a Woman succeeds is it at least presents itself as a documentary. Ladyballers cannot present itself as a comedy, not legitimately at least. Yes, it's incredibly transphobic, yes, it's poorly acted, and yes, it's boringly shot. But I think Ladyballers' biggest issue is that it is a comedy movie that isn't funny. I'm of the mind that comedians can say anything, despite what people on the internet want you to think. As long as it's actually clever or genuinely funny, or at least thoughtful.
And he's just really mad because he can't acquire the apple juice.
Part of telling the joke is getting away with it, and now I'm going to shamelessly steal this recent Anthony Jeselnik clip.
This is a quote attributed to Andy Warhol that I love. It's just, art is getting away with it. You know, if you put out a special and everyone's pissed, like, you didn't get away with it. You know, you need to make everyone laugh that they're like, yeah, he talked about some fucked up stuff, but we're all happy. That's art.
Yeah, cool. What I'm saying is that despite of this film, I was still hopeful that it would actually be funny without its hateful ideals infecting the core parts of a comedy. There are plenty of movies that I have enjoyed, even if I disagreed with that they were propagating. I found The Green Book to lean overly heavily on the white savior angle and the idea that we are meant to root for a racist getting over his issues because he met, quote-unquote, one of the good ones. But in saying that, the film itself was incredibly functional at building a bond between the two leads and the audience, leading to emotional and funny moments and an overall enjoyable experience. The same goes for the most recent TMNT movie, which was both beautifully animated and energetically performed, yet had an overall similar message to, interestingly enough, The Green Book. That someone who is unfairly discriminated against needs to be extraordinary and serve those discriminating against them, just to be accepted at the bare minimum. That's a conversation for a different time, but what I'm saying is that even if you're pushing dogshit ideologies or grifter talking points, I believe you still have the ability to create a piece of art, which is ultimately where Ladyballers fails. I want to use two very specific moments of the film to serve as a microcosm for the writing failures of the film, and it's a moment that really stuck out to me on my first and so far only viewing of the film that cemented this. The first scene I want to bring up is a pretty tasteless montage of the Ladyballer basketball team, which consists of IRL conservative grifters pretending to be men, who are in turn pretending to be women in order to outperform the women in the women's basketball league, something that has never actually happened but is a huge talking point amongst these types. And the framing of this scene consists of these dramatically lit shots where the guys are slam dunking and slamming their packages in the women's faces. Before I make my major point, let's just talk about the scene. You could argue that the intent is to clearly show how disgusting this made-up reality of bad faith trans women dominating sport is, while also leaning a little bit into the raunchy, yet still pretty tacky humour. But what I see is a little more gross than that, radiating similar vibes to how Salma Hayek was treated by Harvey Weinstein while making Frida, where he strong-armed her into filming a sex scene for his own pleasure. I feel sorry for these girls who are very likely unwillingly fulfilling some sexual desires of these tradcon blokes in a meta fashion. But it's for the film, of course, you know. I'm sure these boys were stoked about shooting this scene in particular. Overall, I can see the filmic purpose of this scene, but at this point the movie had kinda lost my trust, so I think I see it for what it really is. But more importantly is how this scene lays the foundation for the next scene in contention. The Ladyballers have flown up in the ranks and are about to face their toughest competition yet, the Cowgirls. They walk onto the court, and wouldn't you know it, the Cowgirls are a bunch of black guys doing the exact same thing as them. While lazy, this is some simple humour to be had with the idea that the only people that can beat these men in a women's league are black men in the women's league. Again, in a made-up scenario that is being lampooned despite its unreality. It's such an overdone joke and feels in poor taste due to both the context the movie has given us and the context the Daily Wire talking heads who worked on this have given us. Often you can argue about separating the art from the artist, but my views on that will be made clear soon enough.
In this instance, we actually can't separate the artist from the art. It's mixed up it's in there.
Again, in comedy, you can say anything, but you have to be able to get away with it. You have to earn it. But yet, a spark of hope occurs within me. All of a sudden, I get this feeling. That previous scene of the lady ballers slam dunking and slapping their dicks in the face of those women on the other team, that was just the setup for the pure emasculation that was going to be coming up in this scene, and the opposing team, the Cowgirls, were going to dunk on them while turkey slapping them in the process. It all made sense. These guys, these right-wing grifters turned actors, were willing to go the full Monty for the sake of the film, to risk a bit of dignity for the sake of the bit, and for the sake of Suddenly, the earlier scene felt less lecherous, much more inspired. Even though this scene would very likely lean on the subtleties of racism and stereotypes of black people, it would at least be an impressive and funny callback and payoff to what earlier felt pretty tasteless. These boys were about to prove that they could take the piss out of themselves and earn back my favour that had been lost in the previous hour or so of sludge. Now, is that what actually happened? How did you fumble the joke bag so bad? Had the scene earlier with the girls been shot where it's their bellies hitting their faces, it would weaken the transphobic messaging, but it would have actually served the joke consistency and the film so much more. Seriously, Lady Baller defenders, explain to me how what occurred in the film is funnier than what I have presented and what I imagine the original intention was. What was the behind the scenes here? All the moving parts are in order. The framing and lighting are the exact same as the earlier scene, and the backwards made-up messaging of the film would have been supported even more so had these dudes taken a bit of dick to the face, but no, they fucking half-ass it, and it leads to a weak fart of a punchline where the punch isn't punch, it's a fucking Jonestown Kool-Aid that killed any more faith I had that this movie would be funny, or actually try to work as a functional comedy. Was the original plan dicks to the face? But then one of these alpha dude bros on the Lady Baller team complained to the director, "I'm not taking a dick to the face, that's gay."
I am not gay.
Which then led to this nuded brick joke. The girls earlier did it. Does that mean they have more balls than you? You fucking insecure losers. Could have had the girls get slapped in the face with their bellies, similar to this scene.
Yeah, that's not funny.
But no, in that moment, you were all in. But when push comes to shove on your side, you hide. My bet is that the actors or producers were too scared to portray anything that would emasculate the leads, which is also why every scene of them performatively being trans is either an overtly misogynistic joke or an overtly homophobic joke, to avoid any possibility of the audience thinking this is somehow pro-trans, even though having the other team's dicks hit their faces would get across the film's entire point that trans women in sport are bad. It would have done a better job. This is not my belief, this is the film's belief, yet it's somehow too uncomfortable to lean into its own ideals. It's fucking embarrassing. This is also why the big Matt Walsh reveal at the end pathetically sticks out. In case you haven't seen the movie, which, you probably haven't, basically, throughout the movie, Matt Walsh is playing a character named Chris Dilby, and he's a caricaturized progressive who wears a shitty wig and is overly effeminate, and to be honest, he's actually kind of funny sometimes.
I see you.
However, in the film's final scene, pre-credits, we had a Marvel-sized twist in that Chris Dilby was actually the real Matt Walsh in a shitty wig. They even lampshade in the film about how the reveal makes no fucking sense. So here are my theories. Either A, the Daily Wire has such a lack of faith in their audience's media literacy. Of course, that's something that they have cultivated, that they didn't want to risk anyone thinking Matt Walsh was actually like this. Or B, Matt Walsh was just as insecure as the other actors on the Lady Ballers team to play a character that could be read as non-masculine without an obvious get-out-of-jail-free card. Either because of his own ingrained misogyny, or the same lack of faith in the audience's understanding of the film's intent. Again, that intent being, trans people bad, we don't like them, and we aren't them. It's angry. That's making me angry. It's making me angry. I can't imagine a rational person watching this and coming out like, damn, Matt Walsh is actually hella fruity. Guess he's gay or trans, and we hate those people, so we are done with him, even though the movie is obviously just echo chambering our belief. The fact that he played a character that did this means he obviously supports it. But keep in mind, this is the Daily Wire audience. We can't have a genuine "what is a woman" fan get confused when they see their pinnacle of peak masculinity wearing a wig and hugging a man without undercutting it and saying, "Nay, 'twas all but a ruse, you buffoons." I want you yell. The fact that a lot of the cast are either playing themselves or characters with the same name as them strengthens my theory that a lot of these decisions are based on personal insecurity with personal branding and toxically masculine beliefs, so we cannot risk even the slightest co-signing of anything progressive lest we lose our audience or worse, lose our man cards.
Hand over your man card.
Anyway, all of this leads to an overall unpleasant and toothless experience, one that refuses to engage in any meaningful way to discuss what it's acting like it's discussing, and is instead catering to two very particular audiences, those being fans of the Daily Wire and lefty soy boy beta cucks who like to rag on the Daily Wire. You can guess which side I'm on. Thanks for listening. I wanted to talk about this movie without, just going into it's transphobic, because obviously it is. It's so transphobic and shit, and misogynist and homophobic as well. It's all those things. But again, the worst part of this movie is that it's just not fucking funny, and it barely tries. It's just embarrassing. I actually expected more, and I think that's the most embarrassing part of this. But yeah, like the video, and if you disagree with anything, why don't you comment and we can discuss it. And maybe I'll make another video soon enough. I'm going to be seeing Madam Web tomorrow, so, we'll compare the two films maybe. Or maybe, I'll just fall into a rut, which is what normally happens, but fingers crossed that Madam Web is surprisingly good. It won't be, but hey, I'm praying.